Okay, April 1st, 1993. A man named Lou Gerstner walks out his front door in Greenwich, Connecticut to drive to his first day as the new CEO of IBM. And there is a 79-year-old man already sitting in his car.
What?
It's Tom Watson, Jr., the previous chairman of IBM, Gerstner's neighbor. He grabs Gerstner's arm and says, and this is direct quote from Gerstner's memoir, "Lou, I am mad as hell about what they have done to my company. Mad as hell. Mad as hell." And then later that same day, Gerstner gets on the corporate jet, orders a drink, and is told that IBM has banned alcohol since 1914 because Thomas Watson Sr.'s father once got drunk in a saloon and someone stole his horse.
No.
Yes. And Gerstner overturns the rule on the spot. Day one. So that is the company we're talking about today. A company where the new CEO has to be ambushed in his own car by the ghost of management past, then immediately break an 80-year-old prohibition rule about whiskey before he can even land in Armonk. That's IBM.
I love it. Okay, where do we start?
We start in 1911 with a Wall Street guy nicknamed the Father of Trusts, stitching together 4 random companies that made, I am not making this up, butcher's scales, time clocks, punch card tabulators, and coffee grinders. And in 80 years, it becomes the most valuable company on Earth.
And in another 80, it's trying to build a fault-tolerant quantum computer in Poughkeepsie.
Welcome to Big Blue. I'm Marcus.
I'm Priya.
I'm David. Let's go. So in 1911, the conglomerate is called CTR, Computing, Tabulating, Recording. About 1,300 employees. The crown jewel is Herman Hollerith's punch card tabulator, the machine that processed the 1890 U.S. Census in like a quarter of the time it should have taken. But CTR is a sleepy industrial group. The financier, Charles Flint, goes hunting for an operator. And the guy he hires is a convicted antitrust felon.
Wait, what?
Thomas J. Watson Sr., who walks into CTR in May of 1914, was at that moment under a 1-year federal prison sentence for Sherman Antitrust Act violations. He'd been at National Cash Register, NCR, running the sales operation. NCR ran an aggressive campaign to crush used cash register dealers, basically destroyed every second-hand market in the country. February 1912, Watson and 29 of his colleagues get convicted, sentenced. The conviction gets overturned on a procedural error in 1915, the same month Watson becomes president of CTR. He never spends a day in prison, but the man who built the most pious, white-shirted, no-alcohol corporate culture in American history was, technically, a felon when he showed up, which I think is the most important thing nobody knows about IBM. Because the culture Watson then builds is, and I want to be careful with this word, it is a cult. A productive, paternalistic, beautifully engineered cult, but a cult. He brings from NCR a complete worldview. The dark suit, the white shirt, the no alcohol rule. That's a personal one for him. His father lost a horse and a sample case to it. He brings the word think, coined at NCR around 1911, transplanted to CTR by the end of 14.
Just on a wall somewhere.
Everywhere. On signs in every office. By 1948, IBM is handing out 9,000 Think placards a year. There's a magazine called Think. There's a Pocket Think notebook. There is, and this is the part I want to play you guys just by reading it. Oh boy. There is a corporate songbook.
No.
Yes, Songs of the IBM. 1937 edition, 54 pages, 100 songs. Sung at sales conventions, at the 100% Club, at family dinners. All written by an IBM employee named Harry Evans, who set new lyrics to popular tunes praising Thomas J. Watson. Song number 3. To the tune of Columbia, The Gem of the Ocean. Quote, Thomas Watson is our inspiration, head and soul of our splendid IBM.
Stop.
Song number 4. Old Lang Syne. T.J. Watson, You're our leader fine, the greatest in the land. Song number 5. Pack Up Your Troubles, parody. Pack up your troubles, Mr. Watson's here. And smile, smile, smile. He is the genius in our IBM. He's the man worthwhile. Okay. My favorite. Song 94. Think, to the tune of Yankee Doodle. THINK spells think, our President Watson's motto.
This is real. This is a real thing.
It's a real thing. In 1939, they commissioned an actual operatic anthem called Hail to the IBM, and Eugene Ormandy conducts the Philadelphia Orchestra in a performance of it at the World's Fair. We will toast a name that lives forever. Hail to the IBM.
I have to ask, did anyone, at the time, think this was strange?
That is the wild part. No, because Watson built around the singing this entire, what the academic Peter Capelli calls welfare capitalism. Group life insurance in 1934, before Social Security. Paid vacations in 36. He refuses to lay anyone off through the Great Depression. He keeps the factories running, full of unsold tabulators. And then in 1935, Social Security passes and IBM is the only company on Earth with enough machines to actually process records for 26 million Americans. The Depression should have killed IBM. Instead, it made it. And this is where the business model gets diabolical. Because the way Watson sells those tabulators, and later mainframes, is he doesn't sell them. He leases them. And he requires you to buy the punch cards exclusively from IBM.
So razor and blades.
Razor and blades, but you're also leasing the razor, forever. And the blades are sold to you at IBM's price by contract. Recurring revenue in 1915.
I had no idea this was that old.
This is the original SaaS company. And it builds a moat, because if you're a competitor trying to sell a customer your tabulator, the customer has to write off a sunk asset to leave IBM. With IBM, they're just terminating a contract. So switching cost is continuous instead of one time, and the installed base becomes a captive market for everything else IBM wants to sell. And that's the leasing model that finally gets attacked in the 1956 consent decree. The first big antitrust hit forces IBM to also offer machines for outright sale. Right. And that 1956 consent decree, which seemed like a defeat at the time, actually unintentionally creates the third-party leasing industry. Whole companies pop up to buy IBM mainframes and re-lease them. One thing I want to make sure we hit before we leave this era. There's a dark chapter.
The Demades thing.
Yes. So IBM owned about 90% of a German subsidiary called Demades, Hollerith tabulators in Germany. April 1933. Within months of Hitler taking power, Demades wins the contract to run the first Nazi racial census, classifying Jews, Roma, others, by occupation, by ancestry. Watson personally approves an investment that raises IBM Germany's capitalization from 400,000 to 7 million Reichsmarks, funds a new factory in Berlin.
And then there's a medal.
June 1937. Watson is in Berlin as president of the International Chamber of Commerce. He accepts the Merit Cross of the German Eagle with star from the Nazi government, at the time the highest honor the Reich gave to foreigners. 3 years later, June 1940, after Germany invades the Netherlands and France, he mails it back with a letter. But Demades keeps operating throughout the war. Edwin Black, in his 2001 book IBM and the Holocaust, documents that every major concentration camp had what was called a Hollerith department. IBM has criticized Black's methods but never denied the specific facts.
Yeah, that's there.
That's there. And then in 1956, Watson Sr. dies, 6 weeks after handing the company to his son.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here because this is where it gets engineering interesting. Because Watson Jr. takes over and the company has 6 incompatible computer families. The 700 series, the 1400s, the 7000s. each with its own software, its own peripherals, its own engineering teams. A customer who wanted to upgrade had to rewrite all their code. So Watson Jr., 1961, convenes this task force called SPREAD, Systems Programming Research Engineering and Development. And they go to a hotel in Greenwich for like a month, locked in a room, and they come out with a 261-page report saying, "Kill everything. Replace it all with one family of compatible computers, from tiny to giant." And IBM does it.
The cost,
$5 billion. Over 4 years.
which in today's money is about $50 billion in today's dollars.
IBM's annual revenue at the time was $2.5 billion. They are spending twice the revenue of the company on a single product family. Watson Jr. calls it, quote, "the biggest privately financed commercial project ever undertaken." Fortune magazine, like contemporary reporting, calls it IBM's $5 billion gamble, and writes that if it had failed, IBM might literally have ceased to exist.
And it didn't fail.
It didn't fail. April 7, 1964, the System 360 launch. And this is one of the great pieces of theater in business history. IBM holds simultaneous press conferences in 165 U.S. cities and 14 countries. They charter a special train to take the New York press up to Poughkeepsie. They unveil 150 new products at once, 6 mainframe models, 44 peripherals. They claim full software compatibility across the whole line.
And here's the part I love. Not all of the equipment at the launch was real.
Some of the computers on display are wooden mock-ups.
No.
They have not actually finished building several of the models they're announcing, so the bet is that huge and that incomplete. And then OS 360, the operating system, ships 2 years late, over budget, using way more memory than planned. And the guy who managed it, Fred Brooks, has his exit interview with Watson Jr., who asks him why is managing software so much harder than managing hardware. Brooks goes off and writes a book called The Mythical Man Month, which gives us Brooks's Law. Adding manpower to a late software project makes it later.
The whole field of software engineering is essentially Brooks trying to explain what went wrong on OS 360.
And the genius of the 360 isn't even the hardware, it's the architecture. They separate the instruction set from the implementation, so a customer can start with a small model, grow into a big model, never throw away their software. It's the modern concept of an upgrade path. They invent it.
And this is the part, Priya, I'm going to take it from you because the business genius is that compatibility itself becomes the moat.
Take it.
Every line of COBOL a customer writes for the 360 is a line of code that locks them deeper into IBM. By 1970, thousands of programmers only know how to write software that runs on 360s. The customer's own investment becomes IBM's retention asset, and that 1964 instruction set.
Still runs on IBM Z mainframes today.
The Z17, which IBM launched last year, 2025, binary compatible with 360 code from 1964. 61 years of lock-in. That is the longest customer prison in the history of the technology industry.
100,000 systems ordered in the first month. 5 years later, IBM's installed base is $24 billion. All of its competitors combined are $9 billion. By 1985, IBM is the most valuable company on Earth. $90 billion market cap, $50 billion revenue, 405,000 employees, 70 to 80% of the global computer market.
And Watson Jr. In 1987, Fortune calls him the greatest capitalist who ever lived. When he retires in 1971, IBM stock is worth $36 billion more than when he started. And right at that peak, late 1968, early 69, the DOJ files an antitrust case, US v. IBM, filed literally on the last business day of the Johnson administration, January 17, 1969.
And it lasts.
13 years, 974 witnesses, 104,000 pages of trial transcript, 30 million pages of discovery. longest civil antitrust trial in American history. And on the same day in January 1982 that the Reagan DOJ breaks up AT&T, Bill Baxter dismisses the case against IBM as, quote, without merit. But it shaped the company profoundly. Two things. One, in June of 1969, 6 months after the case is filed, IBM voluntarily unbundles. They start pricing software separately from hardware for the first time. Before 1969, software was just included in the rent.
And by separating the price,
They accidentally create the entire commercial software industry. Cullinet, Computer Associates, Oracle, SAP. They all exist because IBM blinked. Number two, IBM becomes institutionally cautious, allergic to anything that looks predatory. And that caution explains everything about the next decade.
which brings us to 1980, and one of my favorite stories.
The Skunk Works.
The Skunk Works. So, by 1980, IBM has been watching Apple, Tandy, Commodore, the microcomputer crowd, eat the lower end of the market. IBM's standard product cycle is 4 to 5 years. You cannot do a personal computer on a 4-year cycle. So, a guy named Bill Lowe pitches CEO Frank Cary on building a PC outside the IBM system. They call it Project Chess. They put it in Boca Raton, Florida, far away from the mainframe culture in Armonk and Poughkeepsie. Cary gives them 1 year and explicit permission to break every IBM rule.
The lead is a guy named Don Estridge.
Don Estridge. About 150 engineers. They make 3 decisions that will define the entire next 40 years of the industry.
1.
1. They use the Intel 8088 CPU. Off the shelf, not IBM Silicon.
2.
They outsource the operating system. They publish the technical specs of the whole machine so third parties can build cards and peripherals.
And 3.
3 is the one we have to tell. They fly to Bellevue, Washington, to meet a 25-year-old named Bill Gates. Microsoft sells programming languages. BASIC. They do not have an operating system. Gates says, "Go talk to Gary Kildall down in Pacific Grove." Kildall runs digital research. CP/M is the dominant operating system for microcomputers at the time. He invented the category.
And here's where I want to stop you. Because the myth, which Bill Gates told for years, is that Kildall went flying and blew the deal. Like, was up in his airplane having a great time while IBM came knocking with the deal of the century.
It's wrong.
It's wrong. Kildall did fly his plane that morning, but it was a routine business trip. He showed up that afternoon. His wife Dorothy and DRI's lawyer met with IBM first, and what actually killed the deal was that IBM demanded an insanely one-sided NDA. Like, before we say what we want, sign this and agree it covers everything you might ever tell us. DRI's counsel, Jerry Davis, refused to let Dorothy sign without Gary reviewing it. By the time Gary did review and meet with IBM, the relationship had soured. The real disagreement was money. IBM wanted to buy CP/M 86 for a one-time fee, and DRI's whole business was per-copy royalties.
Also, there's this amazing side note. The reason IBM took Microsoft seriously at all is that Bill Gates' mother, Mary Gates, sat on the national board of United Way alongside the incoming IBM chairman, John Opel. And when Opel hears Microsoft's name come up in briefings, he reportedly says, quote, "Oh, is that Mary Gates' boys' company?"
That's the most consequential mom volunteer moment in the history of capitalism.
So, IBM comes back to Gates. Gates does not have an operating system, but he knows that a guy named Tim Patterson at Seattle Computer Products has written one in about 2 months in 1980 by reading the published CP/M manual. He calls it QDOS, Quick and Dirty Operating System.
How much does Microsoft pay Tim Patterson?
For an initial, non-exclusive license in December of 1980, $25,000. In July 1981, Microsoft buys the entire codebase outright, all rights, for $50,000. Total, $75,000.
for the operating system that becomes the foundation of what is now a multi-trillion-dollar company.
Microsoft renames it MS-DOS, licenses it to IBM as PC-DOS, and the one clause. David, you should say this one.
The single most expensive decision in IBM's history is that they leave Microsoft's MS-DOS license non-exclusive. Microsoft retains the right to sell MS-DOS to anyone else.
So when Compaq reverse engineers the IBM BIOS in 1983, and Phoenix Technologies packages a licensable BIOS clone for everyone else, every IBM compatible needs MS-DOS, and Microsoft sells it to all of them. IBM gave away the keys to the industry it had just created.
IBM's PC market share goes from 80% in 1982 to 20% by 1992. And every clone maker is paying Microsoft per unit. And we have to mention Don Estridge.
Yeah. Don Estridge, the guy who built the whole PC, dies in the crash of Delta Flight 191 near Dallas in August 1985. Microburst. 3 months before his 48th birthday. And honestly, the IBM PC business never really recovers from losing him. The follow-up was the PS2, with the proprietary microchannel architecture, where IBM tries to reclose the architecture they had opened. It fails. Compaq's clone makers just go around them.
Meanwhile, IBM and Microsoft are still partners, theoretically. They sign a joint development agreement in 1985 to build the next-generation operating system, OS/2.
OS/2 is technically very good. Protected mode multitasking, the HPFS file system, long file names, an object-oriented workplace shell. Bill Gates publicly predicted in 1987 that, quote, 3 years out, over 80% of new Office systems will be based on OS/2.
But the cultures don't mix. IBM evaluates programmers by lines of code written. Microsoft thinks that's insane because good engineering means fewer lines. So IBM looks at Microsoft's terse code and thinks something's wrong. Microsoft looks at IBM's bloated code and thinks IBM is padding the count.
And in May 1990, Microsoft ships Windows 3.0 on its own, sells 4 million copies in the first year. Suddenly, Microsoft has its own platform that doesn't require IBM.
And IBM, under a new PC chief named Jim Canavino, is furious. They try to renegotiate. There's this famous Canavino-Gates summit, and in May 1990, IBM ends the partnership. And here is the moment.
Tell it.
Steve Ballmer finds out IBM is killing the OS/2 partnership by reading about it in the Wall Street Journal, on a run, with his wife, on a Saturday. He has said multiple times since, quote, "They divorced us. They threw us out." He just learns about it from a newspaper on his run.
That's the defining humiliation of pre-Windows 95 Microsoft, and it hardens Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer against IBM forever.
IBM keeps OS/2. Microsoft takes its half-finished portable OS project, originally codenamed NT-OS2, and renames it Windows NT. And then we have to do the Kate Mulgrew story.
Yes, we do.
Okay, October 1994. IBM is launching OS/2 Warp at a Broadway theater. They are betting massive marketing dollars trying to land a knockout punch before Microsoft's Windows 95, which is delayed, can ship. They want Patrick Stewart, Captain Picard, as master of ceremonies. Paramount blocks it at the last minute, so they bring in Kate Mulgrew, who is about to play Captain Janeway in Voyager. She substitutes in, and her launch line is, quote, "This is going to take you where no man, woman, or operating system has gone before."
Oh, God.
And the TV ads are these surrealist, very mid-90s. There's a nun on a surfboard. There's exotic locations. And then, days after the launch, IBM cancels the entire ad campaign because they had recently fired their agency, and the new agency wasn't up to speed yet. The momentum just dies. And 10 months later, August 24th, 1995, Microsoft launches Windows 95 behind a $200 million marketing campaign. The Rolling Stones' "Start Me Up" pre-installed on every PC on Earth, and OS/2, which technically may have been the better operating system, dies because it has no shelf space.
And the postscript on this, David, you should know this one because it's an actual undertold story. IBM loses the OS war. But for the next 15 years, IBM architected Power PC chips are inside the Apple Mac, inside the Xbox 360, inside the PlayStation 3, inside the Nintendo Wii. We're talking hundreds of millions of game consoles. IBM lost the desktop war and won, by stealth, a decade of being inside everybody else's hardware.
And then, in 2005, IBM sells the entire PC division, ThinkPad, ThinkCenter, to Lenovo, for $1.075 billion, $1.75 billion total, cash plus assumed debt, plus an 18.5% equity stake in the combined company.
And Lenovo keeps the ThinkPad design lab in Japan, keeps the senior product team, and by 2007, the IBM logo on the ThinkPad lid is gone.
Which brings us back to Gerstner, because by 1992, IBM is hemorrhaging. CEO John Akers, last of the IBM lifers, has a plan to break IBM into 13 separate baby blue business units. The board approves it. Then the financials come in. 1992 loss, $8.1 billion. At the time, the largest single-year corporate loss in American history. Stock down from 175 in 87 to about 40. The board fires Akers, searches for a CEO. They approach John Scully, Apple. He says no. George Fisher, Motorola, no. Bill Gates, no.
Bill Gates was asked to run IBM.
Was asked, said no. So the search chair, James Burke from Johnson & Johnson, takes the radical step of looking outside the computer industry entirely, and they hire Lou Gerstner, who is at the time running RJR Nabisco, the cigarette and Oreo company. Through the wreckage of the KKR leveraged buyout.
A guy who has never run a tech company before.
And on his first day, Tom Watson Jr. is in his car. In his car. Mad as hell. And the first cultural thing he does that day, Gerstner orders a drink on the jet, learns about the Watson Sr. alcohol ban from 1914, and overturns it. The second thing he does, over the next 2 years, he kills the dress code. The white shirt. By 1995, it is officially gone.
There's this story he tells in his memoir.
Yeah, I want to tell it. Day 1, senior management meeting. Gerstner walks in wearing a blue shirt. Every other man in the room is in a white shirt. 2 weeks later, he wears a white shirt, and all his deputies show up in blue shirts. And the lesson he draws in his book, quote, every institution is nothing but the extended shadow of one person. And then there's the line, which I love. Oh yeah, his second press conference. Reporter asks him basically, what is your vision for IBM? And Gerstner says, quote, the last thing IBM needs right now is a vision.
Amazing.
Mocked at the time, now treasured. Because what he meant was, IBM didn't need a new slide deck. It needed execution. He slashes mainframe prices in half overnight to defend the customer base. He kills OS/2. He pivots IBM into services, consulting, integration, and he keeps the elephant whole. He reverses Akers' breakup plan because he reads IBM's real moat as, we are the one company that can integrate this messy enterprise IT problem end to end. And he lays off about 100,000 people in 2 years. He does. He breaks the no layoff tradition. And here's the part, Marcus here I have to do, that I think is the real cultural cost. There's this beautiful piece of reporting in the American Prospect from the Hudson Valley IBM towns after the layoffs. A guy named Michael Cunningham, 28 years at IBM, gets a letter telling him he's been designated, quote, a surplus employee. And he says, and this is a direct quote, that word was the most disgusting word I ever heard. It told me I was excess baggage, junk, garbage.
Yeah.
And then there's a pastor in Poughkeepsie, Reverend James Heron, describing his congregation. Quote, "The whole county acted almost as if Daddy had abandoned them." Another local reverend, Timothy Wu, "When IBM was good, IBM was like a god to them, and the system was closed. Daddy abandoned them." That's the whole story. Watson built IBM as a family with himself as patriarch. When the family fired you, it wasn't a job loss, it was excommunication.
God.
But Gerstner saves the company. By 2002, when he leaves, market cap is back up to $160 billion. They're profitable. The services pivot is working. And his line, the one that organizes everything he did, is, quote, "Culture isn't just one aspect of the game, it is the game." Okay, so Gerstner hands to Sam Palmisano. Palmisano hands to Ginny Rometty in 2012. And for the entire Rometty decade, IBM is, and this is the polite way to say it, Wall Street's most reliable underperformer.
The polite way.
Over the trailing 10 years to 2023, IBM annualizes about 9.4% total return. The S&P annualizes 15.2. That gap, compounded, is brutal. It is a decade of disappointment.
And then in April 2020, right at the start of the pandemic, Arvind Krishna becomes CEO.
Tell us about him.
Born in West Godavari, Andhra Pradesh in 1962, father was an Indian Army Major General, IIT Kanpur for undergrad, electrical engineering, PhD in EE from Illinois Urbana-Champaign in 1991, joins IBM research at the Watson Research Center in 1990, never leaves, spends 30 years at IBM, mostly in research and then running cloud and cognitive, which means he's the actual engineer-architect of the Red Hat deal, which was announced under Rometty but was Krishna's strategy.
And Red Hat is the bet. 2019, $34 billion, largest software acquisition in history at that time.
For Linux, Kubernetes, OpenShift, and Ansible, the operating layer of hybrid cloud.
6 years in, the numbers actually vindicate it. OpenShift annual recurring revenue at the time of acquisition was about $100 million. Now it's $1.8 billion, an 18x increase. Cumulative Red Hat revenue for IBM since the deal closed, more than $34 billion. The acquisition has paid for itself in revenue, and the asset is still on the books. And then Krishna also does something quietly brutal. November 2021, he spins off the entire Managed Infrastructure Services division as Kyndryl. 90,000 employees, $19 billion in revenue. Just out. New company. And it looks like a disaster for 2 years. Kyndryl stock is in the low teens. They inherited billions in loss-making contracts. And then FY25, ending March 25, $15.1 billion revenue, $18.2 billion in new signings, up 46%. They swing from a $340 million loss to a $252 million profit. Their AI delivery platform, Kyndryl Bridge, frees 13,000 staff and produces $775 million in annualized savings.
So the throwaway business actually became viable.
Both companies got better. That's the story.
Okay, let me do Watson X, because this is where IBM's AI strategy gets interesting to me. There's Watson v 1.0, which is the Jeopardy-winning Watson 2011 era, which IBM massively overpromised on. Watson for Oncology. MD Anderson cancels the contract. Watson Health gets sold to private equity in 2022. The whole thing is a cautionary tale.
It's the most public AI failure of the decade.
Watson v 2.0 is Watson X. Launched May 2023. Krishna explicitly called the original Watson, quote, a failed experiment. Watson X is 3 products: WatsonX.ai, the model studio, WatsonX.data, an open lakehouse for training and inference data, and WatsonX.governance, which handles bias, drift, lineage, compliance. And IBM's strategic insight is, we are not trying to win the frontier model race against OpenAI and Anthropic and Google. We are the governance and indemnification layer on top of any model. If Granite, IBM's own open model family, produces output that infringes copyright, IBM eats the legal liability. OpenAI and Anthropic do not offer that.
And the financial scorecard on AI is what's really interesting. IBM tracks a generative AI book of business, cumulative bookings from inception. Q1 25, 6 billion. Q2, 7.5. Q3, 9.5. Q4, 12.5 billion. Doubled in 12 months.
And there is one part of the modern IBM story that gets undertold. The mainframe is thriving again.
Yeah, this surprised me.
April 25, IBM launches the Z17. June, it's generally available. October, the Spire Accelerator card ships. Spire is a 32 AI core PCIe card, 25.6 billion transistors, 300 TOPS, up to 48 cards per mainframe. The strategic point: every credit card transaction, every insurance claim, every tax filing that runs on the mainframe can now do an LLM call inside the transaction envelope. The data never leaves the box. IBM Z revenue is up 67% year-over-year in Q4 25.
For a 60-year-old platform.
And the stock catches up. November 12, 2025. IBM hits its all-time high close of $310.91, which, adjusted for the Kyndryl spin, is the highest valuation in IBM's history, period.
For about 90 days.
Right. So we have to do the future bet, because the future bet is insane. Let me read you the quantum roadmap.
Go.
2025, ongoing. Heron processor, 156 qubits. Workhorse. 2025, end of year. Nighthawk, 120 qubits but with 218 tunable couplers, 20% more than Heron. Designed to execute circuits with up to 5,000 2-qubit gates while keeping error rates low. 2025 also, Loon, demonstrates the architectural ingredients for quantum low-density parity check error correction codes. 2026, Kookaburra, the first processor module that stores information in a QLDPC memory and processes it with a logical processing unit. First fault-tolerant module. 2027, Cockatoo, adds long-range couplers for entanglement between modules. And then 2028 to 2029.
Starling.
IBM Quantum Starling. 200 logical qubits, 100 million quantum gates, 20,000 times more operations than today's machines. Targeted for delivery in Poughkeepsie in 2029.
A fault-tolerant quantum computer.
In 4 years. And the critical infrastructure step. IBM has already moved its quantum chip fabrication from 200mm wafers to 300mm wafers, which is the standard commercial CMOS size. They can manufacture quantum chips with standard semiconductor industrial equipment now, and they already have Quantum System 2 units deployed in Kobe, Japan, co-located with the Fugaku supercomputer at Riken, and one going into San Sebastian, Spain by end of 2025.
JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Barclays are running portfolio optimization. Cleveland Clinic has a dedicated machine for drug discovery.
And then, on the AI side, Granite 4.0, which IBM released in October 2025, this is the part I geek out on, uses a hybrid Mamba 2 transformer architecture. 9-to-1 ratio. 9 Mamba 2 state space blocks, which handle long context efficiently, to 1 transformer attention block. 70% reduction in RAM on long inputs. Apache 2.0. First open LLM family to receive ISO 42001 certification for AI governance.
What does Mamba 2 mean?
It's an architecture from 2023, a kind of state space model that processes sequences in linear time instead of quadratic time, the way transformers do. So you get long context for cheap. The interesting thing is that nobody else, not Anthropic, not OpenAI, not Google, is shipping a hybrid Mamba transformer model at scale yet. IBM is. VentureBeat called it Western Quen, which is a sting because Quen is Alibaba's open-weight model, but it's also genuinely accurate. IBM is making open, small, efficient, enterprise-ready models, not trying to beat GPT-5, trying to be the cheapest, most governable, most deployable thing you can run on your own hardware.
And then there is the bear case. February 23rd, 2026. Anthropic. They publish a blog post.
One blog post.
Claiming Claude Code can automate the discovery and dependency mapping work that drives the highest margin parts of mainframe modernization consulting. IBM stock drops 13.2% in a single day to 223. 31 billion in market cap wiped out in one day. Worst single-day drop since 2000. February 2026 ends down 27%. IBM's worst month since at least 1968. A blog post cost IBM $31 billion. Because the implication is, if AI can compress decade-long mainframe migrations to months, then both the IBM consulting business and the captive customer dynamic on IBM Z get weaker simultaneously. The exact thing that gave IBM its best infrastructure quarter in years is the exact thing AI is gunning for.
And that is the IBM bet in one sentence. Can Quantum and Granite and Watson X revenue ramp before AI-driven modernization tools eat the legacy mainframe and consulting margins?
It's a race. I want to end with one thought. Because we've covered, 115 years of one company. From a Wall Street financier stitching together butcher's scales, to a man in a felony-shadowed white shirt building a singing cult of salesmen, to a son betting the company on a $5 billion mainframe, to a Boca Raton skunkworks accidentally inventing Microsoft, to a man with a blue shirt killing the dress code, to a Hyderabad-born engineer trying to build a fault-tolerant quantum computer in Poughkeepsie by 2029.
That's the arc.
And the thing I keep coming back to, the Watson family built IBM as a religion. Watson Sr. personally. Quote, "The relationship between man and the customer, their mutual trust, the importance of reputation, the idea of putting the customer first. These things," he said, "make a great deal of difference in a company's destiny." And then, 1993, the religion collapses, and a 30-year IBM lifer named Michael Cunningham gets a letter calling him a surplus employee, and his pastor says it felt like Daddy had abandoned him. And the cleanest decline curve in American corporate history is from respect for the individual, 1962, to short runway resource, 2018. Right.
But the company is still here.
The company is still here. 286,000 employees, $67.5 billion in annual revenue. Hit an all-time high stock price 6 months ago. Building a quantum computer. Shipping AI accelerators on hardware whose instruction set was finalized in 1964. The longest customer prison in tech history just shipped a Mamba Transformer hybrid LLM.
That's a sentence.
I think what IBM tells us is that empires don't die in tech the way people think. They get brutalized. They lose entire industries. They give away the operating system of every PC on Earth. They lose 100,000 employees. And then they wake up and find that the boring stuff they kept, the mainframe, the customer relationship, the deep semiconductor research, is suddenly the asset again because the world cycled back to wanting it. Or it doesn't. And the AI race eats them in 5 years.
That's the bet.
That's the bet. Thank you for listening to Big Blue. I'm Marcus.
I'm Priya.
I'm David. Until next time. Thomas Watson is our inspiration.
No.
Head and soul of our splendid IBM. Good night.